What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, and today is the start of the NFL's legal tampering period, meaning that players are being signed left and right, agreeing to contracts. Not too many with the New York Giants. They've been pretty quiet so far today. However, they did lose a key component of their offensive line to a division rival. Nick Gates is signing with the Washington Commanders on a 3-year, $16.5 million deal. There's incentives that can lead it all the way up to $18 million in total. This is kind of something that I look at as a big loss for the Giants. Now, it's one that we kind of expected. Nick Gates, not the best player in the world, but one of the best teammates in the world. So losing him is definitely a big loss for the Giants. I'm going to go ahead and react to that, give you my analysis and take on it, and see what the Giants can do next to supplement this loss. But before we dive into all that, make sure to leave a like if you do enjoy this episode and subscribe to Fireside Giants if you are new, and ring the bell so you don't miss an episode. But without further ado, let's discuss this Nick Gates loss, because him going to the Washington Commanders does kind of stink. I hate the fact that, if he had to leave, did he really have to leave in the division? But he got a good deal, and honestly, it makes sense for both parties. The Giants moving on from Nick Gates, who's going to be making over $5 million per season, and him fetching $5 million. Good for him, dude. He deserves it. Nobody deserves it more than Nick Gates. Look at the career history that he had, going from being an undrafted free agent and signing with the Giants in 2018. Then he signs a $6.8 million, I think it was a 3-year contract with the Giants in 2020. Then he goes ahead in 2021, gains the starting job, gets the captain's patch for being such an awesome leader, but suffers a almost career-ending injury. It was a career-threatening injury, a compound fracture to his lower left leg, suffered in week 2 of the 2021 season against Washington. Now, 1 year later, he returns to the Giants, plays a full season as a starter on their line, and then signs a $16.5 million deal across 3 years with Washington. You've got to respect the career trajectory that this guy has had. He has fought through every battle, and he's always come out on top. So I'm really proud of Nick Gates. Congrats to him. Sad to see you go, my friend, but listen, congrats to you. I'm really proud of you. And now, taking a look at it from the Giants' perspective, well, they do have good amount of money to spend this offseason, but was re-signing a guy like Nick Gates, who they primarily featured as a depth piece. Would signing him for over $5 million per season be a good idea? In my opinion, no, it probably wouldn't have been a good idea. They had to let him go because, listen, Nick Gates, again, love who he is, love his ability to lead a team, but he wasn't the best player in the world. Let's be honest about it. However, his best feature that he had was the fact that he could play anywhere on the offensive line. Across his 4 years with the Giants, Nick Gates started games at right tackle, right guard, center, and left guard. He started 8 games this season, many of them, or all of them actually, at left guard for the Giants. So now they do have to take a look at this team. They had a lot of injuries at left guard last year, which forced Nick Gates into the starting role. Again, they traditionally were using him as a depth piece, but now he has a chance to go over to Washington, compete for a starting role. So again, good for him. But right now the Giants are kind of left scrambling because they did have a really valuable player in Gates for the simple fact that he's versatile enough to fill into any one of the 5 positions on the line if there's ever an injury. And players like that are very hard to find, very rare to come by, a player that has the ability to just play anywhere on the offensive line, be your emergency solution to any emergency. And so I think Gates is going to be really missed for that factor alone. Now the Giants are going to need to acquire a whole lot more depth on the offensive line because they no longer have one guy who can play every backup position. They're going to have to find a few guys to play a couple of positions. Now, the Giants did kind of respond to the loss of Nick Gates today by re-signing guard Wyatt Davis. Wyatt Davis was signed on December 28th by the Giants. They claimed him off of waivers, and he was set to become an exclusive rights free agent this offseason. So the Giants went ahead. They re-signed him on a 1-year deal, originally a 3rd-round pick, number 86 overall of the Minnesota Vikings in 2021. He's played 9 games with 4 teams across the last 2 seasons, so kind of a journeyman, jumping around to a bunch of different spots. He played 1 game for the Giants this season, the regular season finale, where the Giants started their backups against the Eagles. So looking at what Wyatt Davis could bring to the team, 6'4", 315 pounds, was a 2-time All-American at Ohio State 2019 and 2020, as well as the 2020 recipient of the Remington Pace Offensive Lineman of the Year, awarded to the top offensive lineman in the Big Ten. So he had a very successful collegiate career. However, Davis has really struggled to settle into his own and make a name for himself in the NFL, but this is a good response by the Giants. They lost Nick Gates, who was an offensive guard for them. I mean, he used to play center, used to even play tackle again, but he was their left guard last season because of injuries to guys like Shane Lemieux, Ben Bredesen. But now bringing in Wyatt Davis, he can play guard for you. He can be a solid backup for your team. And I think when you look at Nick Gates and the way that the Giants primarily wanted him to be a backup for them, well, he's going to get starting money elsewhere. But now they have a young guy in Wyatt Davis. It's only his third year in the NFL. They can allow him to develop and compete, maybe take a starting position one day, but hopefully just remain as a very solid backup offensive line option for the Giants. So Wyatt Davis extended. But now what will the Giants do if we're talking about the center position, the left guard position? What is their solution after the loss of Nick Gates? Now, Mark Lewinsky is likely going to maintain his starting position at right guard. I can't see them moving on from that contract. It's a little difficult to get out of. He's still under a contract for 2 more years, I believe, and he's making over $6 million per season. So when you look at the contract, comparatively speaking, Lewinsky probably a slightly better player than Gates, making slightly more money. Gates got fair market value, and honestly, the Giants, they don't need 2 players of the same value signed to similar contracts. So again, I like the Giants' decision not to extend Nick Gates at that price tag, but they do need to extend somebody, and I think that somebody is going to be John Feliciano. Now, Feliciano started pretty much every game last season at center for the New York Giants. They signed him last year to a 1-year deal, and it's expiring. So now they have to decide, do they extend him once again, re-sign him, and keep him for the next few years, or do they want to go in a different direction at the center position? In my opinion, Feliciano, his familiarity with the team, familiarity with Brian Daboll, and the fact that he played this whole past season as a starting center with Daniel Jones, I think that he should be re-signed this offseason, and I would expect the Giants to kind of make that move in the coming days and go ahead and lock in John Feliciano as a solid veteran option to be the starting center for the next couple of years. Now, again, what do they do at left guard? Well, the Giants actually did have a player at left guard who showed some promise last year prior to being injured, and that was Ben Bredesen. Ben Bredesen looked really good in the preseason. I think that he should have been the starting left guard if he was healthy, but unfortunately, he suffered a couple of injuries, wasn't able to stay on the football field last season. If he goes into 2023 fully healthy, there's a damn good chance that he wins that starting left guard job once again. Now, they also have Shane Lemieux, but Shane Lemieux hasn't played much the last 2 years. I think he's played 2 games in 2 years. He's been injured a whole lot. So has been Bredesen. I get that, but Bredesen showed a lot more promise on the field when he was on the field than Nick Gates did, or not Nick Gates, than Shane Lemieux did when he was on the field. So Shane Lemieux, I think it's a very good chance that he does get released this offseason. If the Giants cut him, they can actually save $1 million in salary cap space. And I would take that money, just throw it over to John Feliciano and extend him and keep Ben Bredesen as your hopeful left guard while also developing Joshua Ezeudu at left guard. If you guys just forgot, Joshua Ezeudu, another player who was hampered by injuries in the 2022 season, but he's a left guard that the Giants drafted in the 3rd round of last year's draft out of UNC. He showed some promise in the preseason as well. Definitely a player that needs more polish, needs more time to grow and develop, but definitely another player that could just be a backup guard for now and hopefully develop into a starter one day down the road. So again, Nick Gates, I know that we talk about the Giants not having depth on their offensive line. It's almost like they do have depth because they have a lot of players who can compete as backups. They just don't have a lot of starting level talent. So they have a lot of depth pieces, but where are their starters? And that's kind of going to be the main mission for the Giants when it comes to the offensive line. They need to find a new solid long-term starting piece at one of these positions, left guard, center, or right guard. And I think that's probably going to be addressed in the 2023 NFL draft. Looking at some of the offensive line contracts that were handed out today in free agency, they're big-time deals. You're talking $100 million deals are being signed right now on the interior of the offensive line. The Giants are not in a position right now, considering they just tied up a lot of future money to Daniel Jones. They have to tie up a lot of future money to guys like Andrew Thomas and Dexter Lawrence, and probably still looking to extend Saquon Barkley. There's no way that New York is going out into free agency and signing one of these offensive linemen to a big money deal. Unfortunately, I think that the Giants are just going to have to stick with what they got and hopefully find some extra talent in the 2023 NFL draft. There's many players that we've discussed on the channel. Go back and search and check it out. And of course, stay tuned to the channel because we have plenty of updates coming throughout free agency. But again, looking at the offensive line right now, if I had to project the way that it shapes out for the 2023 season without Nick Gates, I think you're going with starter, left tackle, Andrew Thomas, left guard, Ben Bredesen with Joshua Ezeudu behind him, center, hopefully John Feliciano gets extended, right guard, Mark Lewinsky with Wyatt Davis behind him, and of course, Evan Neal at right tackle. So this move of Washington signing Nick Gates doesn't really change the Giants offensive line a whole lot, but they do lose a very valuable and reliable piece of their backup offensive lineman spot. He could play any position. Now the Giants don't have a guy with that much versatility. And again, they also don't have a player with Nick Gates' leadership style. He was one of a kind. Again, I'm really going to miss him. What an incredible comeback story. And I'm glad to see him go through hell and back and get his big payday. So again, shout out to you, Nick Gates. Congrats to you. And of course, I'm going to miss him, but I want to hear your thoughts on this signing down below in the comments comment section. Tell me what your reaction is to Nick Gates signing with the division rival Washington Commanders down below in the comment section. And again, leave a like if you did enjoy this episode and subscribe to the channel if you are new and ring the bell so you don't miss an episode. All of your updates on free agency will be right here on the channel. So again, make sure to subscribe. I'll catch you all on the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.